Hello familia, this is Luis coming to you from Studio Otto or something like that. This is a preview for the City Council meeting for Monday, February 24th. It is the second City Council meeting of the month, so there is no public comment period beforehand at 6. So the council meeting does start at 7. People start getting there like at 5 or so as far as city councilors, so you can always still go and then like try to get like a public or private time with the council person if you are ever going, want to mention something and it's not on a day when it's a city council meeting. They tend to be super approachable that way. So yeah, you can go there before the meeting starts, say, hey, if is Counselor X available just to, for like 10 minutes and, do that. But yeah, there are 20 items in this agenda, and I'm going to start from the bottom up, and then there are a bunch of items that are tied together, so we'll knock those out afterwards. But there are two important ones that are coming through now. One is the resolution appointing interim chief Jason Thody as the chief of police for the city of Hartford, and another one which is appointing a new town and city clerk for the city. I'll start with that one. The one regarding the clerk. As many people know, John Bazzano, who was clerk for about 9-10 years, maybe 11 years that they retired after the swearing in January, and that came as a surprise to many. It came as a surprise to me, but that left the vacancy, and so the town and city clerk position and office in many cities and towns is normally a position that is actively posted and goes through a typical hiring process, meaning that there's a posting, people send resumes, cover letters, and there's a typical HR process. In Hartford, it is the town and city clerk is an appointed position, and in this case appointed by the city council. The difference there between the two is that when you do a posting, like a town and city clerk is something that has accreditation. There are people who take classes for this, who are like official certified clerks. The thing is, the law does not require that. It just means that you're better at your job. So like in Cambridge's case, they just hired a guy who was up in Springfield to be the new the city clerk. So Hartford, when it's the legislative branch who appoints, then you run the risk of having like purely political reasons for doing that. In Hartford, that has been the case. The past two, at least, city clerks have been political appointees, meaning that the person had been attached in one way, shape, or form to the Democratic Town Committee. I mentioned Democratic Town Committee because it's the majority party and the majority committee in the city. So the last one, John Bazzano, was former town committee member, also council president. He was elected as a councilor and was council president for a while. He was an incredible person to work with. So I don't want to infer that just because you're appointed by political process in that way that you can't also do your job. I think that town and city clerk office is the one space where you need to have not bipartisanship but multi-partisanship, right? In a city that has multiple affiliated parties, especially now there are at least 4 different quote-unquote parties in the city council. And so John Bazzano, in my estimation, was awesome. Dan Carey was awesome, the man before him. That became, because of his untimely death, that became vacant in 2009. And at that point, there were 3 people who were vying for that position. Marilyn Rossetti, who was a former city councilor. At that point, she was director of Hartford area rallies together. She's now city council person again. She was John Bazzano was vying for that, and a man named Noel McGregor. Am I getting? No, I'm not getting his first name right. Yeah, Noel McGregor. I get the McGregors messed up. But Noel McGregor had been, I don't know if he was on council, but he had been at the very least a chair of the Democratic Town Committee of the City of Hartford. He runs securities and investigation firm out of Gillette Street, and I don't know him too well. I'm sure he's a nice guy. He's being put forth by 3. There's a resolution putting him forth now by 3 council people, and in the resolution, they do add on a salary, and that is annual salary of $115,000, which I think is probably right for that position. I do want to say that I think I think this position deserves a little bit more respect than just going the political route. What we saw in the past when Dan Carey passed, and then there was a new vacuum. The deputy town clerk, young lady named Kelly Bilodeau, stayed for a while, but then eventually left, and she's now a town clerk at a different town. Mm-hmm. Right now we have a young man who's been with the city for, I think, at least a decade. So he's been there since I've known him, since I've been there, and since I've left. So at least a decade, and is a professional at what he does, in the same way that John Bazzano was. So I hope that city councilors consider this when appointing this position, that we really can't afford to have like the partisanship that happens, that we've seen in the registrar of voters, that we've seen particularly registrar of voters. In city council and the mayor's office, you're going to have that partisanship thing happen. That's just the fact of life, and that's fine, and we've seen it with city council in these first 2 months. But town and city clerk is a position where you really just don't want to play games with that vote, and just appoint someone who's going to keep the ship rolling. And that's item number 19 in a 20-item agenda. Interim Chief Thody is being put up. There is a report here that speaks to the public meeting that happened. It also speaks to the Public Works, Quality of Life and Public Safety Committee that it went to. That was moved forward with a recommendation to approve the nomination by the mayor, and that's going to be put up Monday for a vote. At the time, the vote was, there was one person missing. The vote was 5-3, 5-4, 3 abstaining or no votes. I think it was 5-4, 2 no, 1 abstaining, and 1 absent. So in a body where the quorum is 5, as long as you have 5 votes, it moves forward. And so it looks like he will be appointed. Again, people can email or call their city councilor to voice any opinion they might have. And there's also a report here. There was, if people remember, there was another item added in relation to the Chief Thody resolution, which asked for a public process to happen, basically to put it out to look nationally for a candidate, and have, like, in the same way that Pedro Segara did, he had 3 people that he was looking at, and then he brought them in. If I remember right, he ended up not choosing any of those 3, but those 3 were put forth in front of people over at Hartford Public Library. Questions were asked, and I think there was a hope that would happen again, and didn't happen. It doesn't look like it's going to happen because that item was specifically postponed. Once the chief of police position is filled, if that happens this upcoming Monday, what will probably happen at committee is that it's just going to be tabled or removed by the authors, but it will probably be tabled, and if an item is tabled twice in committee, it dies, and that's how that's how things go to die in committee. There are three resolutions that speak to that item. So out of 20 items, we've already kind of talked to 4. There are 2 items. There's a report. There's a communication and a report with a resolution for the property at 126 and 130 New Park Ave and 161 Francis Avenue. This was a property up by New Park Ave by the Super Stop and Shop that the city wants to sell to a group named New Samaritan, who wants to put affordable housing on that piece. The report was really short and sweet, saying that everybody was kind of in favor for it. The state representative from that district spoke in favor of it, and the group New Samaritan is based out of North Haven, but they've been doing this type of work since the late 80s. So it looks like, and they've already put like a good chunk of money in with like land remediation, and it looks like it's going to go through. There are 2 appointments, 3 appointments outside of Chief Doty appointments. There is the appointment for to make interim Chief Operating Officer Thea Montañez the official Chief Operating Officer. I think that has moved forward at a steady pace, and it's been fine. There are 2 others. One is to appoint Gloria Brown to the Permanent Commission on the Status of Hartford Women, and that was something that was introduced before, went to committee. Something else that was introduced before by the mayor, and the last of these appointments, and went to committee, is a resolution to appoint Frank Lord, Jennifer Cassidy, and Raul Irizarry to the Greater Hartford Transit District Board. It's a board comprised of regional representatives, regional stakeholders, and Hartford gets, I think, 4 appointments, maybe more, but in this case there are 3 vacancies. 2, Mr. Lord and Miss Cassidy had been, their term had expired, so they're reappointments, and Raul Irizarry would be a new appointment. The unfortunate thing about this, and we talked about it in a past video, is that both Lord and Cassidy, who are wonderful people, like I worked with Jen Cassidy. Actually, Frank Lord was a landlord of mine at one time. They've been on this committee now 12, 13 years, and then these are 4-year terms. They will eventually be there once appointed for 16 years, and I think there's something to be said about looking within the bounds of 125,000 people, to look for the next generation of people to be in boards like this. So they're great people, but I think Hartford and council should be and the mayor should be looking to identify again the next generation to do this thing. Another interesting thing is Jennifer Cassidy of the 3 was the only one to show up to the council meeting and answer questions. Frank Lord and Raul Irizarry both were not able to be there, and just something that's indicative of Hartford is that Frank Lord, Jen and another counselor and a city councilor did speak in favor of Frank Lord, saying he's a really nice guy, he does great work, which I agree with both, and he was moved forward positively, but Raul Irizarry was not given the same, no one spoke in favor of him. So we have a situation where, if you have 2 people that didn't show up, you should just postpone both of those and speak to them at the next meeting. In this case, Frank Lord was moved forward positively, and Raul Irizarry was postponed to meet at in the March committee meeting. And it's little things like that make you go, that's kind of messed up. We spoke to, when we looked at the resolutions in the last preview, there were a bunch of resolutions from the City Department of Health and Human Services, which were basically, we talked about the City Council being the only entity within the city to approve gifts and money. So anytime a department asks for a grant, if they get that grant, the City of Hartford, the City Council has to approve the receipt of that grant. So what you will see is a lot of resolutions calling for authorizing the city to accept monies. In this case, there are 3 resolutions, all from the Department of Health and Human Services, at asking the council to authorize the city to accept 3 grants. One for $84,000 and change, another for $770,000, and another for $62,000. So it's great that our department heads and the people within those departments are looking for revenue streams from a federal level, and I think it's pretty common that way. So way to go for them. They're also asked to authorize the acceptance of a bus shelter from the Greater Hartford Transit District. That's right. So gifts or money. In this case, this said bus shelter will go behind Old State House over there by Constitution Plaza. It's one of the fast track bus stops or something. So the Greater Hartford Transit District wants to gift the city a bus shelter, and in the resolution they do talk about the fact that the downtown BID, the Business Improvement District, will be in charge of maintenance for that space, or in this case, that bus shelter. Running down, there are 2 things that we've seen one of before, but it was a really bad example of this. In this case, there are 2 really good examples of this. Items 6 and 7 in this week's agenda are annual reports from the Greater Hartford Flood Commission and the Hartford State of the Forest report from, I think it would be the city forester who probably did that. They're both, I took a look at them. The Flood Commission report is all super wonky. It's 5 pages of really good information. I encourage you to look up the PDF that should be online at the city website now and read it. The same with the Hartford State of the Forest report. This is something that's relatively new. I'm happy to say that I was the city councilor who submitted that ordinance change to have that, with the help of some incredible people, the green people. I just basically did what they told me. Which is what all city councilors should do. What? Joking, and not joking. But I would encourage you to take a look at those. Scanning. There are 2 ordinances that are changing appropriations to school construction projects. Basically, the reason they're changing it, it's nothing major, is that the state has changed the percentage that they would reimburse. They actually upped the percentage. In one case, it's a $3 million change. In another case, it's a $6 million change. So for Buckley High School, it's going from the authorization is going from $149 million to $154 million. The original ordinance did speak to $149 million, so they're looking to change that on this ordinance. And I'm looking at it, and it's pretty simple to see the changes on ordinances when you look at it, because they're all underlined. Anything that's underlined is a change. So I'm looking for any other underlines, and I don't see that. So that's 2 items, actually, items 15 and 16. And then there are 2 final items. One is there's been an ordinance going through that speaks to prohibiting the sale or offer for sale of any flavored tobacco product. And I think this includes vaping products, right? So it's like cherry flavored something. They're making it unlawful to do that in the city of Hartford. That was put forth by, I know Councilman Gale had a hand in this, and I think there were 2. I don't have it in front of me right now, but an ordinance basically should be going through a long vetting process. This is passed relatively quickly, and I think because of the timing. So sometimes I just is worrisome because you like an ordinance that's going to be in the books forever. To really have a good 4, 5, 6 months of vetting. This case, it's been about 2 months, maybe a little bit more. So, but that's going up for a vote this upcoming week. And last but not least, there's a resolution, and it's funny because this resolution has had two separate. This is the last item of the agenda. Two separate things go forward, and that is a resolution to make Hartford, to call Hartford a STEAM city. I looked up online, and there was no official like STEAM city list. I think it's just something that a feel-good thing, but hopefully what this means is that when you call yourself a STEAM city, I think you have to like show it somehow so that maybe more. And STEAM is the concept that you do stuff around science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. STEAM. It's a evolution of STEM. Everyone science, tech, engineering, and math, and they've added arts to that. So there is one put forward by T.J. Clerk and Councilwoman Shirley Surgeon, resolving to name the city of Hartford a STEAM city. Woohoo! But other than that, that is it. We hit 21 minutes, so kind of on track. Hit me up with any questions, and adios. Peace.